Hey, what's up, nerds? Paul Conti here with Radio Free Hammer Hall. And today, I'm going to do a little ranting. I don't usually get too impassioned about things and rant and rave, but there's certain things that just get under my skin sometimes. And that's usually people saying things that are dumb and not really having a lot of good backing to them. So, what's got something stuck in my craw today? Well, thanks to the question on the community survey, the debate has once again bubbled up about the double turn. I cannot explain how ridiculous I think the claims of people on the anti-double turn side of this argument are. But what I am going to do is lay everything out for you, so in no uncertain terms, we can all understand why the priority roll is an important part of Age of Sigmar. Okay? This is probably about the calmest I'm going to be for this whole video. Number one, it is not about double turns. It's not. It is a priority roll. You are rolling a die to determine which of two players gets to choose the order of turns in the battle round. It is not automatic. You don't roll the dice and whoever wins the roll goes first. And let me be perfectly blunt. If that's how you're playing it wrong. Go read the rules. If you are playing it correctly, but 100% of the time you're going first when you win the priority roll, you're probably doing something wrong, or you're a bizarre statistical anomaly. Like, you're probably playing poorly, and you need to learn to play better. It's just a very, simple thing for me. That having the priority roll adds strategic depth to the game. And it begins all the way back at list building. Yes, at building your list is where the beginning of your decisions about the priority roll occur. Why? Because of battalions. And in general, your drop count. Because whoever has the fewest drops finishes deploying their army first, they win priority for the first turn. Now, again, let's be clear about this. That doesn't mean they go first. It means they have priority. They are the player that chooses turn order. There are lots of reasons to give your opponent the first turn. Maybe they're an Alpha Strike army, and you've deployed in such a way that they are going to hit a big fluffy pillow, and then you can countercharge them. That's just one example. There is a plethora of reasons that you might out-deploy your opponent and go second. Secondly, in this, it allows players that want to play an Alpha Strike army to hone their list in such a way that it has low drops, so they have a high likelihood of getting priority for the first battle round, so that they can get the jump on their opponent and go first. In order to do that, you usually have to make sacrifices in your list. Let's be really clear about that. In order to play a list like that, you're probably sacrificing things. So there's decisions being made at the list building level about your priority rolls, whether or not you care, right? And then afterward, now in the second edition of Age of Sigmar, we have a new game mechanic that has been added that screws with the priority roll decision. The player that goes second in the battle round is the first player to move any predatory endless spells. That's huge! Especially because a lot of the time, if a predatory endless spell hits the table, it's probably the only one there. I've seen very few instances of multiple endless spells on the table at once. Especially of the predatory variety. So that's a big deal. If you have an endless spell on the table that you want control of and you win the priority roll, that is a very good reason to give the first turn of the battle round to your opponent and take control of the predatory endless spell and put it where you want it to be. So that's just one reason. Just one. There are all sorts of in-game strategic reasons why you would give up priority. Just simply game state. If you have an advantage on the board and your opponent taking a turn in the current game state will probably be kind of a wasted turn where they're not really going to be able to do a lot, you might want to throw priority their way so that you have the possibility of getting a double turn in the next battle round. Very possible. That's something that could happen. Another thing to consider are effects that end at the start of a player's hero phase. This is very, very important. If you give away priority to your opponent when you win the priority roll, that means you get one extra turn with your ends at beginning of hero phase abilities, and your opponent gets one less. This becomes particularly important when you have situations where, say, your opponent has a spell effect that lasts until their next hero phase, and it's a difficult to cast spell. Or even if it was an easy to cast spell and it has a profound effect, now you get another bite at the apple trying to unbind the spell. What I'm coming to here over and over and over again is the priority roll creates strategic decision-making opportunities. In general, it makes better players win more because any decision point where a strategic choice can be made allows the better player to take advantage. So the complaint that people have that the possibility of having a double turn just will throw away the game to a bad player and a good player will lose a game that they shouldn't win, in my opinion, like 90% of the time, that is a total bullshit excuse argument. It's just wrong. Because a good player, when they are playing out their turn, and they know there is the possibility of their opponent getting a double turn in going into the next battle round, they're going to plan for that. A good player is going to plan for that. You're going to position everything in such a way that you can withstand 2 turns of whatever your opponent does. And conversely, it allows you, when you have the bottom of the battle round, to make a strategic choice of taking a risk and extending yourself with the hopes of getting that priority roll. But in any case, you have to be able to, in each of your turns, position yourself in such a way that you're going to be able to take advantage of whichever way the priority roll goes. I have won plenty of games where I got double turned. Plenty of games. I would say out of my own anecdotal evidence, it's probably about 50-50 win-loss. And it's rarely the case that the double turn was a back-breaking thing. And if it was a back-breaking thing, to be clear, that means I fucked up. I did something wrong in my own planning. And I think what people are doing with this double turn priority roll idea is they're making fucking excuses for their own poor choices. They're making bad decisions for their own bad play. It's just an excuse. What's your excuse going to be if the priority roll goes away? Then it's going to show that you lost because you lost. And then what's your excuse going to be? The dice? Oh, right. Yeah. Then it's going to be the dice. The dice just screwed me this game. Not I made a bad decision. Not I made a whole string of bad decisions. Not I deployed incorrectly. Not my list sucks. Take ownership of your choices in your list building, in your gameplay. Everything you do, be deliberate. Think things out. Plan things out. If you want to be a better player, you need to think ahead. You need to plan ahead. If you're putting yourself in a position where you say, man, I'm going to lose this game if I don't win the next priority roll, that shouldn't be common. That should be, I'm already in a bad position in this game. And if I lose the priority roll, it's just going to continue the downward spiral. But if you win the priority roll, maybe you have a chance. It maybe increases your odds a little bit in that situation. But ultimately, if you're in a bad situation, your opponent's probably just outplaying you. It happens. Just be a better player. That's really the big message that I have for everyone. You know, why do I do videos on Math Hammer and tactics and going over all of these things? Honestly, it's because that's the work that I would do myself, building my own armies. I was doing that anyway. And I just decided to make a YouTube channel and share videos with the rest of you guys about that to maybe help other people think about things in a similar way. Think about things that they hadn't thought about before. Because they weren't planning ahead. They weren't actually going out and doing the math and seeing that a certain buff is better than another buff. And it's really important to understand those fundamentals, to sit down and do the math. When you're comparing two units, do I take A or do I take B? Unless you actually do a quantitative analysis of it, you're just kind of guessing. This one feels better. Oh, I've won more games when I ran this unit in my list, so this unit must be better. No, you need to actually have numbers to put to this stuff. If you want to play better, you can't rely on luck and anecdote. If you want to play better, you have to think ahead. You have to plan ahead. You have to really put the effort in. Acknowledge all of the mechanics of the game. Age of Sigmar simply would not be the same game whatsoever if that priority roll did not exist. It means unwinding the whole thing and going back. It means your list building is different. It means your deployment's different. It means a whole plethora of things. The way you play each turn will be different. It will be a fundamentally different game. And that game will have less strategic depth than Age of Sigmar currently has, because the priority roll adds additional decisions to be made. It separates the men from the boys, right? To use an old adage, right? You can't just say, I'm not a good enough player to overcome getting double turned, therefore we need to get rid of the mechanic. No. Getting double turned, you can win. Like, it happens all the time. And instead of saying, how can we change the rules so I can win more? You need to be thinking to yourself, within the rules that exist, how do I win more? So don't just bitch and moan about a rule that you think is hurting you. The rule's the rule. It applies equally to everybody. So plan around it. It's not like you don't know there's going to be a priority roll. Just fucking plan around it. It's what you've got to do. That's what the best players do. They're not even just thinking a turn ahead, a battle round ahead. They're thinking multiple battle rounds ahead, multiple turns ahead, as to how they're going to position themselves, what they're going to do. They're thinking ahead about what their opponent's likely to do. It's all about planning and thinking. Engage the brain that God gave you. For God's sake, just use your head. That's all you have to do. And stop crying about something you think is luck that you can plan around. So that's enough of me ranting and raving about the priority roll. It's not about double turns. It's a strategic element of the game. If you don't like it, go fucking play checkers. We're playing a serious game here. All right? Put on your big boy pants and roll for priority.